share the screen. Is the problem statement visible to you? My screen is visible to you. As you, I'm not sure how many of you have gone through the problem statement, but I'll just give a quick review of what the problem statement is, and then we'll start working on it. So in this particular application, there are two problem statements. One is for the vehicle parking application, and another is for the quiz master. I'm assuming since vehicle parking was the application which is being introduced in this particular term, and you might have worked on your quiz master if you have done your Mad One project in the previous term, so you might be working on the quiz master application. And just go to the one of the problem statement, and the other is very similar to that. So that three things which basically we have to focus on. One is the backend part of our application, where we would be working, we would be creating APIs. And by now, since I've asked you to, watch 4 of the videos which I've shared on the GSpace, so you might have got some ideas on how to create the APIs. And we will create the APIs here as well in the session. But just to, I can move faster. That was the reason I asked all of you to, watch at least if you want to brush up your ideas on the concepts. And so that's why I asked you to watch those 4 videos. Now, I will be under the assumption that you know basics of the things, but how do we implement those basics into the project? That's what we are learning there. So that's the first part where we would be creating the backend. So probably today and in the next session, we would be completing our backend part of the application. Then we will move to the front end where we would be using Vue. A disclaimer over here that in the Vue course, that in the Mad 2 theory course, you might have learned about Vue 2, and that's not which I'm going to use. I would be using Vue 3, and because the Vue 2 has been depreciated by the company, and so that's what we will be using. And we will when we come to the that part, we will see how it is different. How do we use it? But I can assure you that even if you're very new to Vue 3, I will make sure that you understand each and every detail about that. And then the third part would be using Celery and Redis. Redis is an in-memory database. Celery would be helping us to schedule the tasks, and it would be like we are executing asynchronous tasks for that matter. So that's the overview of the problem statement. That's what they have been asked us to do. So we are not allowed to use Jinja, which we have used in the Mad One project. And the rest of the things is similar, but there are like 2 roles which are there in the application. One is the admin, another is the user. And they have given about what all functionalities these admins can create. So basically, since we're working with an vehicle parking application, so there is an admin who would be creating parking lots, and each parking lots can have multiple parking spots. And he can monitor those parking spots, as well as he can edit or delete parking spots and not parking lots and not the spots. So that's the thing which they have written over here. The admin can edit and delete parking lots. That is just to give an example of what is parking lots and what are parking spots. Let's say that we have a building, let's say Parliament of India, where that can be one of the parking lots. And in the Parliament of India, I have 10 parking spots where other cars can be parked. So that's a parking spot. So that's the idea. And so admin can edit or delete the parking lots, and that's the thing. And the users are the customers who will choose the parking lot if they're available or not, and they can book the parking spots, and they can release or vacate the spots as well. So that's the overview of idea. So that's the high level idea of the parking vehicle application. But they've given us some core functionalities over here. And few of the things is we have to implement admin logging and user logging, which we have to implement using the authentication token-based implementation, either using Flask Security and JWT token-based authentication. I would be following the Flask Security approach, and the second and third video, which I asked you to look for, just to how to set up the Flask Security into our project. that covers that particular part. So we will be creating the two, we'll be following this for implementing admin login, the user login for them. Then for the admin dashboard, all the functionalities like viewing the statistics or the charts, and then adding new parking lots, adding the parking, monitoring the parking spots. All these are the functionalities which would be there for the admin dashboard. Similarly, for the user dashboard, we would be having whether option functionalities to create new spots or sorry, the user would be having functionality to book the available slots, release them, or monitor which all parking spots are available. So that's the part which is very similar to what which would be very similar to MAD one thing. The only thing would be we would be implementing all these core functionalities with the help of APIs and the view instead of Jinja and the routes which we followed in MAD one. That's this would be easier part. View would be tricky, but it would be easier. Then comes the backend jobs where we would be scheduling the daily reminders as well as monthly activity reports. And there would be one user trigger task, which is export some data. It would be there which you want to export as a CSV. You can consider this export as a CSV and the monthly report. Like we generally get monthly bank statements on our email. So we would be implementing that with the help of Celery and Redis. So this is the overall problem statement which has been given to us. We will be dividing into these three chunks. One would be where we would be working with the front end, then the back end, basically back end first, and then the front end. And then we would be working on the Celery and Redis tasks. So you can consider generally we'll be having 6 or 7 sessions. First 2 sessions would be for the backend. Then next 3 or 4 sessions, depending on how much you could cover, would be for the front end, and the last session would be for the asynchronous tasks. Any doubts over here, guys?
No.
All right. So I hope you have watched the videos. How many of you have watched the videos which I asked you to? And did you have any problem? We can keep these
Sir,
characters.
sir, I was having a little bit problem in APIs. Past
Can you
security,
explain?
I was able to understand.
Uh-huh.
The get requests and post request, I couldn't able to get like how it is communicating.
Okay. Others? See if I would know your concerns, I could address them
I have,
in the
I
sections.
have built my APIs.
Okay, Nitin.
Because in MAD one, I didn't work with the APIs, so it was kind of new for me to
Mhm.
implement on this project as it is mandatory.
All right. So let's start with my VS Code screen is visible to you. When I switch to the VS Code, I don't see the reaction. So please, you can, anyone of anyone who can well.
Okay, sir.
So, all right. So this is the folder which I would be working with. So let me set up first of all, my setup is not there. So first, let me create 2 folders where I would be having one is for the backend and another is for the front end. So basically, what I'm trying to do over here is so all my logic which is relevant to the backend would be in the folder named as backend, and the other thing would be the front end. And and in the backend part, let's start with creating our files first. Let's start with so we discussed that we discussed the problem statement for the current term. The problem statement which I'm going to work for this particular bootcamp would be the grocery store application, and where I would be creating an application which is similar to what we see as an Amazon and all. So I would be running fast with the models which I'm creating. And because you have done all that in your, but even though I will be explaining the stuff, but I would be moving fast with the models, everything that setup, which initial setup, which is required for us. Uh, I hope no one has problem with that.
No, sir.
Okay, so let me start with first installing the dependencies because I don't have the dependence in my system. Uh, I understand. Which goes to first level of the backend, and then let's install Python installing my virtual environment. It's done. So let's start with we have activated the virtual environment. So I want to let me create the requirements.txt, which is needed for us. Okay, first thing which we need is Flask, as we all know. Then Flask is for incoming. Then Flask security 2. So there was earlier there was this Flask security which got depreciated. That's why we are using. And then they renamed it to Flask. They have released a new version which is Flask security 2. That's why that's there. Then we would be using Flask RESTful. And I think these are sufficient for now. If anything comes at the later stage, we'll install that. Launch.txt. All right. So now if we come here, the console. So now from Flask, I need. So let me just quickly set up the things which is needed. Okay.
Just a quick question. Recordings of this session will be available to us later.
I have started the recording. I will be sharing the drive link for the recordings of these sessions.
Okay, thank you.
Will this code also be available for us?
Yeah, I'll push the code to the GitHub. Just to, I'm seeing few familiar names. Any one of you have attended my Mad1 bootcamp before?
Yeah, I have attended.
Okay, so these are the few familiar names. That's why I asked. Okay. So this was the generally, what we generally do when we start with our project. But since we also need the Flask security, so we'll import from the Flask security essence. We will import. Let's create a DB over here. Just to repeat that line. In the database.py, I'm just creating an instance of the Flask as incoming. No, it's just how I can.
Have to write from. I think you've done import. That's why it is not coming.
Yeah. From class SQL dummy, let's import SQL dummy, and then from okay, instead of putting all these files here, I want to create a new folder here inside this folder, which will be for controllers, and I want to put this database file into the controllers. Okay. From controllers database. I want to import the table. Yeah, I also need one more file which will be for my models. Models.py. So all these codes you can bring it from your Mad1 project itself. So that's why I'm going fast over here. From controllers. User. Okay. So here is this thing. Since I'm not sure whether so when we are implementing the Flask security, then we're creating these three classes like user role and the user role table. So Flask security mandates us that we need to have these three columns, these three models basically, to integrate it to our SQL outcome. If you have gone through the documentation, it says that. So for that, we need to import few things. One is from Flask security, we will import user mixins and role mixins. So this user mixins and role mixins are the classes which have predefined methods which are necessary to retrieve the authentication token. So they have all the implementation of the functions which are necessary to retrieve the authentication token, and there are many other functions as well. So that's why we are inheriting this user mixins, and these are the questions which generally asked as well in the Vivas. So let's create. Yes. I need to explain the relationships, or you guys know the relationships? Like what the STB dot relationship is? Please let me know if you want me to explain, because you might have by now understood what the relationships are here. Right?
Yes, sir, we know the relationship.
All right. So yes. And there are few things which is needed from the FS. So there are these two things, which is FS token unifier. Let me just open the Flask security. So if we go to the Flask security documentation, and if we go to the authentication token, token authentication, it asks us to have these two fields as well, which needs to be there. One is FS unifier, another is FS token unifier into our data, into our models. So let's bring that here in our code. And similarly, FS token unifier. We need to have, I think I'm putting just email ID and password for the user model, and I think we are good to go with the user model now. Yeah. Similarly, we can create the role, and then we can create the role user table. Yes. And we can have other tables. One is products. Another next would be categories. So I can have a foreign key over here. It says categories ID is the foreign key. And that's our relationship. So, anyone has any doubts in this code? I'll move ahead. I'm assuming that you all know this. That's why I've been very fast over here. All right. So now we have our models. And now, if we come to our app.py file, we need these two models, these three models, user role and user roles, to create a data store, which is required for the Flask security. So if we come to the controllers, let's create one more file, which is for user data store. I'm going it in the modular approach so that I don't get circular errors at the later stage. So you, in your Mad1 project, you might, sometimes when you are setting up your project, you might have got these circular errors. To avoid that, I have created a different database file, and similarly, I'm right now creating different user data a file for different user data store, and that is from Flask security. I will need SQL Alchemy data store, and there are two things over here. One is SQL Alchemy user data store. Another is SQL Alchemy session users data store. Both the things work almost similar for our context, and so I'm using SQL Alchemy user data store over here, and also from the controllers dot models, I will import user and role and also DB. Now we can create our user data store. Is equals to SQL Alchemy. And we need to pass these three arguments. One is user, another is role, and that's it. So now we have defined our user data store, which is needed for our Flask security. If we come to our app.py file, now we can start setting up our security as well. So we have this thing. So now let's create another file for controllers, that is for configurations, config.py. And we can create a new class that says that config, and what all configurations we need a secret. That's the secret. I don't know. I'm thinking that it's spelling of the secret now. Can someone help me with the secret spelling? I don't know why it seems correct. It doesn't seem correct.
Sir, I think you didn't install the class security because in the
No,
previous
installation
one,
is done. Installation is done. It's just that my virtual environment is inside the backend folder, and my VS Code is looking for the global this thing. That's why it is happening. But otherwise, the dependencies are being installed properly. The thing is, I'm just not remembering the spelling of the secret. I think it's correct.
it is correct. Sir.
Yeah. No, it is not correct. It is correct. Okay. Sometimes it happens. And so these are the two things which we were using for, people who have seen my bootcamp first. The secret key and the SQL Alchemy URI as needed for, right? But for the Flask security to work, we need security password salt as well. SCCU security password salt. And that's a new attribute which is needed for our application to work properly. So these are the three configurations as of now. If we need any another, we will add in this particular file. So if we come here in our app.py file, we can, from controllers.config, we can import the config file as well. Now, when we're defining, we can just add .config.from object config. So that's the part. And so now we need SQL Alchemy. So we have imported the DB. So we can say db.init app. So we have set up our database. We have set up the configurations. Now we need to set the security. So let's create security. For that, we need security is equals to, and we need user data store here. So from controllers dot user data store, we will import the data store which we have created in this particular file over here. So if we come from here, we can just say this security, the class which we have imported from the class security, we will use that security. We'll tell our app that I'm working in this context and this is my user data store. So we have set up the security now. And we can just go with this. So now in the first tutorial video which I shared yesterday, we were creating the APIs with the help of just routes. So basically what when we say that we are creating an API, what actually we mean is that we are sending, instead of the templates, we are just sending the data which is being requested by the client. So it either may be credentials, it may be product details, anything which is being requested by that particular API. We are just sending the data. We are not sending how to design it, how to display it to the user, and all that information is being handed over to our front-end server. Only we are sending the data. So we have seen that when you are using routes when we are creating the APIs, we could simply use routes to create the APIs. But there is a library which wraps around all those APIs into a proper format, and that is Flask RESTful. So have you watched the fourth video? How many of you watched the fourth video? One. Okay. Jitendra, Nitin, and Sri Balaji.
Sir,
No, I was not
I
able to.
only go till 2 videos.
And,
Okay.
And in the current project session, I think Adarsh sir is using JWT security. So I'm following that in my project.
Okay, that's completely all right if you're following JWT. No, I'm talking about when you are creating the APIs. So
Oh,
using the
APIs,
Flask,
no.
yeah. Okay. So just to give, so I would be using Flask RESTful for creating the APIs. So from Flask RESTful, I need to import APIs. I also need to configure the APIs now.
Sir, Flask RESTful, we can use the any RESTful framework.
We are using RESTful. Flask RESTful is one of the RESTful frameworks. So we are using the RESTful framework here.
But someone told me that we can't use any framework like RESTful or XREST. Only you have to use the
See, Flask RESTful is allowed because that's not a different framework which is there. It's just a library like a Flask RESTful, SQL. These are just the libraries which we are using. We can completely use the Flask RESTful.
Okay.
This library which I'm suggesting over here, we can completely use it.
Okay.
It is this particular library is also the part of the course which they have taught in the course.
Last time I used the Flask RESTful, so my mentor asked me to convert from RESTful to simple Flask API.
I'm not sure why your mentor said that. But since Flask RESTful is a part of curriculum in the theory course, I'm sure that when you were doing your theory, you have come across a Flask RESTful.
Yes.
So it is completely allowed for the project. Whatever is being used in the theory course, you can completely use that.
So if I didn't use this in this current project, it will work if I use the simple APIs
So
from.
see, if you are creating your APIs like this, right? Let's say that I'll just show you one example over here, which is the way we have created our dot route. So the API this is the one of the API which I'm creating. I'm not sending any templates over here. It's just that I'm sending the JSON object and this is the data which I'm sending with some message. And this is the status code which is there for my API. So this is what I'm trying to send over here. You can completely create your APIs in this particular fashion. But the problem here, the arises is it is difficult to, keep track of all these endpoints which you can, have over here.
Yeah, true, sir. Okay, sir.
So let's say that, see how your code would, so every API you're creating, you're writing one route. So it will, fetch your endpoints will not be at one place. However, let's say that when we are using Flask RESTful, we can have, all the APIs which we are creating, we can manage them more better, more properly, and it would be more Pythonic. The code would look more Pythonic. That's why I'm going with the Flask RESTful, and also it gives us certain wrappers around me, like Marshall fields, and all, which don't even need. I just can return the object, and it can directly create the JSON object for me. That's also there, but you're free to use either of the ways.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions over here?
No, sir.
Yeah, even I've used just the simple APIs in my backend.
Okay, it's completely all right if you're using the simple one or the Flask RESTful. It's completely all right.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if the people who are using Flask RESTful, if we want to set up the APIs for here, we can just create one more thing over here, which say API is equals to API. We pass the application over here, and then we can return up and the API. Okay. And then when we are calling this particular function, I'm receiving app and API over here. Let's try to see if we have any errors or the database is being created. And if any errors come, we'll resolve that. Let me save all the files. I'm in the backend, so I can just run Python. It's Python 3. Yes, it ran properly. If we go here in our instance folder, for now, there is no instance table which was created because we have not created that instance table, but till now, there are no errors. So we are good to go. Stop the server now. And now we'll start creating the tables. Okay, so the people, when you're using the models with the Flask security, we handle these models, these three models which we have created, user and role and the role user table. We handle these three tables a bit differently compared to the other two models which we define in as welcome. So any operation you want to perform in these three models, which is a part of Flask security over here, we can we need to use a user data store. So the example could be, so since whenever, for the first time when I'm creating my application, that is, I want to create my database. Okay. And when this is created, I want to now register what all, I want to put some of the data into my content. So what I will do, I will use user data store. Let's say that I'm creating I have two roles in my application. One is an admin and another is the customer. So let's create an admin role first. Admin role is equals to user data store dot find or create a role with name as admin and the description as administrator. Similarly, I can create the user role, or let's call it as a customer. It doesn't matter, we'll call it as a user. So where these functions are coming from? So let's say that find or create, or so these functions generally are being provided to us here in the Flask security documentation. There are many other functions. So if we go to the Flask security, if we come over here, we make a search for the user data store API. And as far as SQL will come in, user data store. Mm. Okay, I cannot use a different. Yes, since we are creating a user data store, so we have various functions which you can see, like activate user, add permission to role, add role to the user, create role, create user. You can use these functions, or you have find role, find user, delete user. These are the functions which we would be using, like find role, or create role. So these are the functions which we would be using to interact with these these three models: user, role, and the user role. If you will directly try to interact with the user model with the help of db dot uh, session dot add or db dot session dot delete, if you try to use the user uh, interact with the user in this particular fashion, you might come up with difficulties, because see, these fs unifier and fs token unifier, these are the things which are being pre-populated and are being defined, and that's when we get the authentication token and everything. So if you see over here, you will also have an function to get the authentication token which is needed for us. I think it's yeah. So there are many functions which is needed for us. I hope you got the idea. I need to find it where that statement is, but I hope you got the idea, right? How do we interact with these user data stores? So we have various functions. One of them is we are using is find or create role. Now these would be creating the user data stores. Now we will try to add, if not, user data store dot find user. Do we have a function for find user? I saw somewhere. Yeah, find user. I'm using this particular function. So find user, I'm giving the email models. We have email. So email is equals to home. We will create the user data store dot create user, and I can create now a user with the email password. I need these three things. Okay, I'll enter email. And password. And now we also need to pass the roles, which I said because it's in relationship which we have defined. So we'll pass the admin role over here. And once we have added this particular user, we can simply now say db.session.come. Do you have any doubts over here in this particular part?
No.
All right, so we'll move ahead now. So let's see if we have these things are being populated. So we'll see to the instance folder, the table has been created. And if we go to the user table, see these fs unifier and the token unifier have been pre-populated. Similarly, if we go to the user role table, we have the role which we assigned. The roles two roles which we have defined are also being populated over here, and so these three tables have been populated properly. So with this, we are ready to create the APIs now. So we have done all the initial setup which was needed for our application. Now we have set up our application. We have set up our database. We have configured it with Classism Alchemy. We also have configured the security. Now we'll start creating the authentication APIs now. So how do we start with creating the authentication APIs? So let's go to the controllers. Let's create a new file. Let's call it as an authentication APIs. And what all things we need for that? So basically, we need to create three APIs for authentication. One is login, logout, and register. So first, we will create a login API. So we are using Flask RESTful. So from Flask RESTful, I would import resource, and from Flask, I'll import request, and also I will import JSONify. I'll also import make response. Yep, and so now I will I will start creating a class which is login API. And whenever we are creating any of the classes, which is the APIs which we are creating for the Flask RESTful, we need to create a class and we need to inherit it from the resource which we have imported from the Flask RESTful. Okay. And okay, let me give you an idea over here. So let's say in our app.py file, we created a simple API over here. You can see this is the API which we created. And let's say that if we want to create the same API with the help of Flask RESTful, how and the syntax changes. So the thing is, we will just first create, let's say we create a class called as index. We need to inherit the resource from there, from the Flask RESTful. And we can just say define request it will accept as get. So we can say get and then self. So this is how these two things are different. One is we are just creating the class with all the functions and the functionalities of that particular when we receive that particular request, what all functions or the logic that should be executed, we define that inside that particular function. And here we're doing this but at the end, what we do, we can just need to say api.add resource and we can add that index like this. So this is how the syntax difference between the Flask RESTful and the way if you are creating your APIs in a normal sense. I hope the difference is clear to all of you. You can choose both of any one of them. It's up to you. But I find like this is more easier for me to follow. That's why I'm going with this particular approach. All right. So since I'm going to create the login API and I want to accept the post request here. So first of all, we need to get the login credentials. And we can use request.getJSON to get any of the data which is being sent via an API. And from the login credentials, if we have no login credentials, we can say that okay, I just want to stop here first. Am I going a bit faster or you want me to slow down now because concepts are being you're not able to understand, or should I go keep this particular pace? How should I go about this? Rohini, Elema.
I think you're okay.
All right.
Yeah, we can follow you.
Okay, then. So it's so we can. So I saw you. I explained you that we can create these JSON objects like this, but it's better. So we can use a particular function which help us to make our responses in a better way, in a formatted way. So what we can do for this is, let's say that we are creating a result and that's the data which we want to send to the user. We want to send every message saying that login credentials are required, and then I want to return this particular message. So I can create a response, and this will format my result in a particular format. So since this is a dictionary, I want to convert it to a JSON object. So I will say JSONify and result. And so I need to send various status codes. So generally 200, the status code which are between 200 to 300 are okay status. 400 to 401, 402 are bad status. Let's say that something goes wrong, let's say the page not found, some resources not found. And so those errors, we generally got 404 errors when we go, right? So these are the status code which we get. So every API we are creating, we can also set what's the status code you are sending with that particular API. This will help us to help the user to debug and put the logics on these status code. See if you get a 404 error, what need to be passed into what needs to be shown to the user. If it is in 500 error, what needs to be shown to the user. So these status codes are important for that matter. And so generally, if since this is bad, which is not uh, 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 this is which we is not required, right? This is something bad which should not happen. So generally, we'll throw an error by saying status code is 400 because the request is bad, right? So now here we are performing all sort of data validation, which you already have done in your manual, but that's just a different syntax which we are following. Okay, so and then we can just take the email from the login credentials, and similarly from the password, we can just simply test things, cause if things are empty, we can just add none. And now if email is not there or password is not there, we can just simply create a new message saying that email and passwords are required, and we are making a response and we are sending these requests. So this part is clear. This is done. Now we need to check for whether the passwords are correct or not. We are not encrypting the passwords as of now. We are just simply storing the passwords. But you can always encrypt the passwords using bcrypt, and you can read the documentation on how to use the encryption with the password. But right now I'm not doing that. And so we have got the email and password right now. So first we need to check whether the user is there or not. So we can just simply call user data store. So we need the user data store now because we are interacting with the user and the role models. So I need the user data store. So user data store. Find user. We can find the user with the help of email now. If user is not there, we can say that user is not found. Again, this part is being repeated. We are repeating the same part. So I'm not gonna spend more time. You can see that the status code has been changed to 404, and so password is not there. Now we need to verify the password. So we need from the Flask security, we need to import utils. And this utils would be used to verify the password. So if not utils dot verify password, and we can pass both the password which has been accepted into credentials and whatever is the user password. We can fetch them. And so if you have encrypted your passwords, right now, since we have not incremented, we have not encrypted the passwords. We could have just simply said that password is equal to user.password, and we could have moved ahead. But let's say that you have encrypted your data, encrypted your password, then you need these libraries like utils and verify password to ensure that the encrypted passwords are being matched. So that's done. We can return the message by saying that invalid password is there, and whatever possible scenarios you can think about the data validation which you need to perform on the login credentials, we do that. But now I'm assuming that I have done all sort of the potential data validation which I need to do, and I'm not sure that the user who's trying to enter is an authenticated user. So we can get the authentication token, and we can authenticate user because user dot get auth token. So if let me, so now this particular function, this get auth token, where this might be one of your, questions where this particular function is coming from, get auth token. So if you see in models.py file, we are inheriting some of the functionalities of user mixin. So this particular function, which is get auth token, is defined in this particular class user mixin. So that's where we are able to get the authentication token. And now we can just say that utils.login user, and we can log in our user. And once we have logged in our user, we have got our authentication token as well. So now we can create a response. Let's say that response which we are creating has two parts. One would be a message which says that you have logged in successfully. Next could be the user details. Open this one. And what all things I need from the user? I need the email. And I need the roles, and I also need the authentication token. So now I am, why this error is coming? It should be equals. So we have created a response here. So these responses which we are creating over here, you can customize it. You can have nested dictionaries. That's all up to you how you want to design your responses. But let's say that we have designed our responses. Now we can return the status code is 200. So since we already have one user, we can test this particular API which we have created, the login API. And here we have used user data store. And the next thing is we have used the function from the user mixins class, which we have imported when we were defining the models. And so this function is coming from there. And why we are performing this particular step, if you may ask why we are performing this particular function, the reason is that so somewhere in our backend also, sometimes let's say that we want to, our user also needs to know which user is currently logged in and with this. So at that point of time, we also need to tell, so we need to store that information. That's why we are doing this. The util.login user. Any questions here, guys?
Could you repeat why the utils are used again?
Yeah. So see, sometimes your backend, let's say that we have a particular function which is given as current user. Okay, there is this particular function, this particular variable is there, which we can get the information. Okay, somewhere in some logics, we want to get the current user's information. But at that particular point of time, we need to know, right, which user was logged in at that particular time with this particular authentication token. So here we have an authentication token, which we are passing. So with this particular authentication token, who is your user? And that's why we do utils.login user. Rohini, did you got the idea, or do we need to explain a bit more?
Yeah, I got it.
So for now, I don't need the user data, so I'll remove it. Yes, so with this, let's test this particular API. So you can test these APIs. And first, we have created this API now, but we have not created the endpoint for it. So we can create the endpoints, like we'll import controllers.authentication APIs. The APIs which we have created, we will create, okay, instead of import, from import, controllers, we will import the login API which we have created. Yeah, login API we have created. And then we can define API.add resource. And then that's how we can create the API. So we can also set one thing, which is when you're defining this API, right? So we can also, enter prefix as such as something called as /API. So I'll come to this part. What is the use of this prefix? So every API which I'm creating, with the help of RESTful, I will give the /API as one of the I would sandwich that /API. That's why I have set up the prefix. So now let's save the file for this as well. We have saved the files. Now I can use Thunder client to test my APIs. So let me test first API which I'm gonna create, which we have created. So this is the /API. That's where the prefix is coming from, and then API / and this is the endpoint which we have given over here. This is the endpoint which we have given over here. So that's why this entire path has become like this. So generally, there are two things which we need to pass always, right? We need to send some headers, and we also need to send some body. So right now, since we are sending a post request, we have created a post request for this particular API. We are sending the post request to this particular endpoint, and it should have some. If you see that it is accepting some body, so we will send the body over here. We can specify it. So email. Let's say that email is admin. Okay, there should be double quotes instead of single. I don't remember the password. Mm. Yes, so let's say that let's try to see what happens if we send in correct credentials. Let's see. So if you see, we have got a status code as 200. Also, if we try to inspect the response which we got back from the API, we got the message which we have created. There is some authentication token which we need to keep in mind. We need this to, we need to send this particular authentication on all the APIs which we would be creating where the login is required. And the other information which we send also is also claimed by with the API. Let's say that we try to enter some incorrect email address, we get 404 error, which is user not found. So all these responses which we have created are coming to us now. So let's say that we have the correct password, but we signed the incorrect password. We got the invalid password with the status code as 404. And so I hope you have got the idea on the login API now. Any questions, sir? Okay, so let's move ahead. So we have created this login API, but I also want to create an API to log out the user, right? So I can create another class, which would be for the logout API. Same thing, logout API I'm creating. I'm inheriting the data. I'm inheriting this particular resource class, and then I can define the post request. Okay, here is this thing. I can log out only if I have logged in before. That's the constraint I want to, impose. So I can just say from the Flask security, I can import auth token required. So what I'm trying to say is whenever you are trying to hit this particular API, I want to impose that this particular API should have an authentication token inside its header. That's the restriction I'm imposing over here. So I'll say @auth token required. So this is the constraint which we are importing for the role-based access control. So there are many other things, right? Like we have an auth token required. We have just a second. We have auth token required. Oh, why was this right? Yeah. And then we have roles required. You have role required as well as you have roles required. So these two things are there. So which says that you can also now say that, let's say, role required, and the role required is, let's say, user or admin, whatever roles you have defined here in your role table. In the whatever roles you have defined in your roles model, you can just put the names of those here inside the role required. And if it would have been a roles required, if you want to allow it to for the multiple roles, you can just say roles required, and you can pass a list of all the roles which is there. Is this idea clear about the roles required and auth token required? For now, I'm just imposing the restriction on just the authentication token, which is required for us. And so what I need to do is I just need to call utils.logout. I don't need to check anything else. I just call this particular function which says that I'm going to log out. And when I'm calling this particular function, I will just response. I can create a response which says that with the message you have log out successfully. And I will just say return, make response, and whatever response was there, we will send it. And that's how we are implementing the logout functionality. This is the API which we have created for the logout. And now once we have created this particular API, we can add the path here. So we can also have the logout here, and then we can create the API for this. So you are seeing, right? So all our endpoints are coming at the same one place. So it is easier to manage all these endpoints at later stage if you want to change some of the endpoints, we can change it from here rather than navigating to the entire page and finding out where that implementation of that particular route has been there. So if we follow this particular approach, that's the reason why I find it more convenient to use Flask testable. Is this part clear? Okay. So now similarly, we can create another API, which is, let's say, the logout API. We have login API, we have logout API, and now we have register API. Register API, and we can have the resource.
Just
Sir?
a doubt here.
Yeah.
The role required that you showed just now at the class,
Mhm.
that is usually used for authorization, right?
This is also used for, so see, we have authentication and then authorization. So for authentication, we are using our token required. And for the authorization, we are using the roles required.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, someone else has also doubt.
Sir, so instead of doing all those templates like render templates in the MAD one, we are going to
Yeah,
use APIs and do the get and post requests, is it?
correct. So what will happen?
Okay.
So if I'll explain you right, so you can consider like this, that you would be having your backend server over here. And let's say that you have a different server. It's hosted on different, let's assume that these are hosted on a different machines for now. You would be having a front end server, which this front end server has the logic for displaying how the content, how the page is being displayed and everything. And they will interact. So this front end will interact with the back end, and the communication will be between these two servers. Okay, I need to. This communication between these two things will happen via APIs. So you can consider like this. So this is how it will happen. So these two servers are communicating just with the help of APIs for your front end. So let's say that the page which I'm going to this page which is being displayed right now, this content, some content is there which is being that some data is needed now. So my from the front end server, a request or an API request will be sent to the backend server over here, and then you will get the uh, it will process the information, process the API. It will, if there is an authentication or authorization needed, it will check for all that. And if everything goes smooth, the data or the information is sent back to the front end server. Now, front end server will know how to utilize this particular data. So if you see over here, we are sending these data right now. We are not concerned how user is going to use these information. Let's say, for example, when we say that, okay, this particular message which we are sending, it can be one of the pop-up message when I log in and I press the login button on my front-end application. A pop-up might or an alert might come up with that message saying that a login successful. However, this email address can be used to display on the side navigation bar saying that, okay, this is your email which user you have logged in. So all this information, how the user will be using the front end uh, designer would be a front end developer would be using this information is not of our concern. We will tell you, okay, if you want to hit this particular API, I'm going to send this data. That's the only thing which we are doing for the backend. Those rendering templates and all that thing is we are not doing. Is it clear now?
Okay, sir, got it. Yeah.
Yes. So it's very similar to how we have, created this login API. Similarly, we can have logout API, and now we are creating the register API. It's very similar. When we are creating a register API, first thing is we would be having a request which will get the email address and password because that's only two things which we are storing for any user. If you have multiple information which you're storing about your customers and user, you can send that. And so first thing again is credentials which we can get by using request.getJSON. Yeah, and then if okay, first of all, I need to specify which method I'm gonna defining for. So I can have various functions, right? So when I'm creating the RESTful thing, so I can have a function called as, let me say pass for now. Yeah, define get size. Define put. Okay. So what happens here? Let's say that you want to send a to a particular URL. You want to send a post request. So the implementation of the post request will be inside the function called as post. For the implementation of the get function, the implementation should be inside the get function. And for the put method, it should be inside the put function. Now, when you are creating, you are following this particular approach over here by this route, you generally, do like this. So @app.route, and then let's say that you create slash something, and then you will need to specify methods as get, or you need to send a post request, so you need to specify the post method over here. And that's the thing, if you are accepting a post request to a particular endpoint, that's where you have to define your post. I hope this is clear now. Like what changes once if you're using this kind of an approach and this kind of approach. So let's say that you are creating for a particular API, you are creating all these three: post, get, and put. So you need to define these three endpoints. Here, let me copy this and paste it. Something post. You need to also take care of these function names now, and it should be, let's say, put. So to same endpoint, if you want to receive a post request, and the same endpoint, if you want to receive a put request, that's how you define it. You have to take note of different function names. Is that part clear? If you're following this particular approach. And that's why I feel like it's a cumbersome thing, because for the post put, I'm writing the same line again and again. And if I have defined an API, like register API with these three functions, with the same endpoint, I just need to do simple thing, which says that API dot register API, and I can import it like this. So now this statement and defining the class in this particular fashion will ensure me that this particular endpoint accepts all the get, post, and put requests. But here, when you are following this particular approach, you have to define like this. Is the difference and advantage of using Flask RESTful is clear to all of you? Or do you have any doubts now?
No.
All right, so let me
I mean,
comment
it's
all these
clear.
things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll comment these things and I'll move ahead. Okay. So for register, I just need the post. That's why I don't need this. I'll remove them. I just use them for the explanation purpose. So let me comment it instead of deleting it. So I want to define the post request for, let's say that credentials which I get from the user. I can take that as request.getJSON. If credentials are not there, I can make a response by saying that registration credentials are required. Otherwise, I'll fetch the email ID and the password which is there, which I need from the API. These two things I need. So I will ensure that not either of the things are not empty. Same logic right now. This is just the data validation which I'm doing over here. And now, once this is done, now I need to verify whether I already have an existing user with this email. So I can just say if user data store dot find user, and email is this email. I'm seeing that user already exists. Okay. And now, since we have ensured that user is not unique, I can call user data store to create the user with email ID and password. But since in our problem statement, it says that every user which is being created with the register API should be user only. Its role should be user because we only have one admin in our application. That's a restriction which we are imposing for us. So this I need to pass the role as well to this particular user. So I need to fetch the role. So I can say the role user role is equals to user data store dot find or create role. And no, I don't need the find or create. I basically need just to need find role. I've shown you this function is also there in the user data store, and that's another function which I'm using. And I can just simply say name is user. And then we can simply say its roles is equals to user role. And since user has been created now with the help of user data store, we can just simply say db.session.commit. It's showing minus an error. Why do we don't have a DB over there? Okay, we'll import a DB. From controllers of database, we'll import DB. And now we'll say DB. So now at this particular point, our database, our user has been added into the database. So we can just create a response and then we can return it. Is this part clear? So you can add other, constraints over here. Password should be greater than something. Email should be valid, or you can impose all those things. Let's say I'm adding just one. Add, but it is not in the email, and all that logic which whatever you want to impose, right? So you can impose that. Is this part clear? So with this, we have created a register APIs now. So let's save and try to test it whether our logout API and register APIs are working. We have refreshed the page. Let's try to test first the logout functionality. So I can create a new request. So you can keep. Okay. Let me copy this. I think sending a new request. Let's see what I want to send them. Logout function, and I need to send a post request. So if I send a post request, it says that something is not found. I have not saved this particular file. So we have saved this file, and now I'm trying to send a post request with the logout API and try to send it. It's saying page is not found. Why is this happening? Okay, logout API, register API, /logout/register. Is any spelling?
Capital L. Yeah. Capital L in the endpoint. Yeah.
No, at the endpoint here is small. Here also it's small only. First, I got 302 error. If I'm trying to debug over here, if I look at this thing, it is saying that what all APIs I have received. Initially, I got this thing 401 error. Then when I hit this particular API, I got 404. And here, I got the 302 error. Some page was displayed, and again, this thing was happening. Okay. So let's try to add one thing over here. That is authentication token. And the authentication token which we have got by entering the correct credentials sent, and I need this authentication token. So I'll copy this, and the API which I'm creating over here, I'll just paste over here. This is the authentication token for the user which we have logged in. And if I send the post request now, it says that you have been logged out successfully. All right, so if we don't pass the authentication token, we get this, we got 200 error, but we got some HTML syntax. which says that you must be signed in to view this particular resource and stuff. Right, so authentication token is needed for this. Is this part clear? When you're trying to log out. Or if you
Because
don't
we
want to
use
use,
the
yeah, you're on.
authentication, yeah, the authentication token required because we use that function. For,
Correct.
okay.
So we use this authentication token required, and we don't send authentication token in headers. This is the key which we need to send. You can modify this key by using the, if we go over here, go to the application and we look for authentication. There is a configuration which we can set, ensuring that there's the configuration for that. So if we see, these are the various configuration which we can see. So you see the security token authentication header, right? So if you want to, this is how, what's the default value, and that's what I'm passing in my header. If you want to change it to something else, you can use this configuration, set it inside your configuration files. Let's say authorization, and we can save the file. And like now, instead of authentication token, let's say try to send authentication token. Again, we got you must need to be signed in. But if I, instead of this now authentication token, if I pass the authorization, that's the key which I've set, and now I send, then that's a logout successful. So this is how we can configure what's the key which is holding the authentication token in the headers. And now we need to test another API, which is, let's say that, so now you can have, see, you're getting listed all your APIs over here. You can, if you want to test other APIs, you can just play around with it. You can create a new request now. And this is for register. We need to send a post request. We need a body, and the body, I can just copy this JSON from here. Instead of admin, let's say we are creating user one, and the password is, let's say, user. I'm sending a post request. I send it. I got a 500 error. That means that we got some unexpected error. And if we read about it, we are getting an SQL alchemy user data store error. So basically, the way I'm using the find role is not right. It has got an unexpected argument as name. So if we go to the authentication token API, so when I'm finding my user role, I'm passing this name. I don't need to pass this. It may have a different name. That's why I'm just doing this. Let's save again and try to hit the API for the register again. We hit the API, user registration has been successful, and we can check our database whether this user has been added. We have added this user, and we can check its role as well. The role has also been assigned properly. So this is how we can create the register API as well. So I can remove this from here. Any doubts, guys? We have done with the authentication APIs now. The reason I was moving fast was because I was assuming that you have watched all the videos, and it has helped me to complete the content which generally in the previous bootcamp, this up reaching to this particular point took me 3 days to explain and everything, and I was not able to spend more time on the view. I really want to spend a good amount of time on the front end server, because the back end I am assuming you all can make, after explaining this, how to create API, how to handle APIs and all. Any questions?
No, I think that's a good approach. I will need help in connecting the front end to the back end and all.
Mhm. So the backend, we can start with the front end uh, in the next session itself, because majorly that's the repetition of. So you would be creating APIs and the logic would be same. You would be sending some data, and you would be handling either putting some data, some information into your database or removing it, and that's how you will be doing it, right? So let's create one of the CRUD APIs. One CRUD API we will create, and then you can replicate the CRUD APIs for all your use cases. So now we can create the CRUD APIs for, let's say, admin CRUD APIs. So we can, from the controllers, now we can create a new file. And let's say we give it as a name as CRUD APIs. So CRUD APIs.py, right? So this is the new file which we have started working with. And I'm trying to clear up some space. Okay. So for the CRUD APIs, we need some of the imports from here. I need all these imports. Okay, and just copy this thing. And then just go. Okay. So now it's from controllers dot models. We can import its models only, right? Yeah, it's models, and we can import every model from there. Now let's start first creating the categories. Let's start performing the CRUD on the categories. Class category. CRUD categories. Okay, let me name it as this category. Right. We can hold it from the resource. Now, first, I'm trying to retrieve the information. So for the retrieving information, I'm not putting any restrictions for the login required and all. So let's say that starting with define get self, and I'm passing category as category, which is none for now. This category. Let me complete this code and then I'll explain that. Let me see what all things I need from here. Okay. First of all, I need to change all my models. Models can define the categories as this thing. So I can go to the card please and change the categories.query.get. We got the categories information from here. And if category is not there, we say category is not found with some status code. And then we return the information. If we found the category, okay. So let's try to debug this thing over here. Let me complete this code and then I'll explain it. I think that spelling is correct. And I can query everything. And I've created a links list and I'm iterating over all the categories. And I'm adding this dictionary into this response and I'm sending it. Okay. So for now, what I have done, I have created a GET request to this particular category CRUD API, and I'm passing a GET function which has two arguments. One is self, another is category ID. By default, the value has been set to null. Okay, so let's add this particular API here from controllers. Controllers.CRUD APIs, and I've just defined the CRUD API. So I can add the resource. Now see what has happened. So generally, you remember if we need to pass some argument to this particular function over here, in this particular case, we used to say like this, right? Integer and placeholder we used to define, let's say ID, and that's how we used to specify over here. This is how we used to interact with if when some argument has come to the URL, which the data has been passed in the URL or in the endpoint. We can use those endpoint by defining these placeholders like this, and then we can use the ID like this. You remember this from the MAD one? So similarly, for the APIs also, if we want to pass some functions, some data from the some data we want to take from the endpoint, and we want to pass it to the API, and we since out this API is for the categories. So these two endpoints are being assigned to this particular specific API. Let's say that we hit this API. That means that we are hitting GET request with the category ID which has been defined over here, this one, and then it will start executing these steps. That's it. That if I'm specifying a particular category ID, that means that I want just the information about this specific category and not all the categories. And if I don't get any category ID in my URL, that is, if I hit this particular API with the GET request, then I'm expecting that you return me all the API, all the categories which are there in the database. So that's why we have defined this. That okay, first I will get the categories. Now categories are there with me. Now I have to define the response the way I want. Basically, how the response I'm expecting over here is it should be a list of dictionaries. So I have created a list and I'm iterating over all the categories, and one by one I'm adding the list dictionary of those categories into this list. And then I'm returning this response over here with the status code as 200. Is this clear? Want me to explain this thing again? Guys, I want me to explain this again.
I think it's clear.
All right.
Yes, yes.
So now let's create the GET request as the post request. And so for the whenever I want to make any changes to the database for the categories, it should have an authentication token. It should have a role as in role required. As in a role required should be admin, because I want that only admin can change the categories database. So that's why I've entered both the role-based access control as well as authentication and authorization has been done. So now I can just simply say, first of all, I need to get the data from the request. So I will say request.getJSON. If data is not there, then we can return saying that no input is provided. And from the data, since we are creating the categories, we only have two fields which are expecting. One is the name, another is a description. So for now, only we have mandated that name should be unique. So we can saying that, okay, name is required, category name is required. And saying the sending the pass message, all the data validation which we have to do, we are doing it for it. And once all the data validation has been sorted, we can, the way we used to do in MAD1, right? Creating an object of that particular model. Categories is categories. And then we have created that object, and now we can add that into the database by saying db.session.add, db.session.commit. And once this has been done, we can return this information saying that we can create a response with some message saying that category has been created successfully. Also, what was the data which was added And whenever the data was added, then we can just create the response. Same way, we can now return, make a response as whatever the response which we got from here. This response we are returning with the status code as 201 because we have successfully made changes to the database. This is how we have created the post request. Now we don't have to make any changes into here at this particular line because this will take care of the post request which we're defining over. We have seen it when we were discussing the register API. So similarly, like you have done it for the get request, you have done it for the post request, you can do it for the put request as well. That is where you want to perform an edit. So the way to create the edit is we can simply auth required, admin required. Now we can define a put request. Since this edit operation will happen only on one category, we need to have the category ID in our URL. So we have got the category ID. Now first let's query whether the category ID is correct or not. So we'll say category is equals to categories dot queries dot get category ID. And if its category is not there, I can return saying that category is not found. But now I know that category is correct. I need to make changes to this category. So I can just get the data first from the request by saying request.get JSON. I have the data now. Same thing, data should be correct and all. I can have the name, I can have a description. If name is there, that means that I want to change the name of this particular category. So I will just say name category.name is name. If description is there, then I want to change the description. So I'm not making any compulsion that in order to change the name, I should have both name and description. But if name is there, I want to update the name. But before updating the name, let's say that we have put in constraint that name category name should be unique. So we can just simply check for categories.query.filter by. That is, I'm checking first whether the name exists, the new name which I have got from the request, whether there is already an existing category with that name. If that is there, we'll return with the message saying that category already exists. Otherwise, we can simply say category.name is name. And this is how we can make an update to both the fields. And then we can just simply say db.session.commit. And the update has been made. We can create a new response saying updated successfully, new details will pass as the data. And then we can make a response. And this is how we have created the put request now. Any doubts here now? This is just a repetition of what you have done in your Mad 1. It's being repeated everything. It's just that the only difference you will see is coming in this particular part. After making commit, earlier you were doing render template. Here you are just sending the data like this. Rest and everything is almost same. Just that now the syntax has changed because we are using class RESTful. But we have created now, if you'll see, we have created how many APIs over here? 2 APIs, 1 API here, 2 and 3 APIs. 3 APIs we have created for the categories. Let's say we want to perform the delete as well. It's also similar. You can have perform the delete. It's very simple. Like you get the category ID from the URL, and we have defined the URL over here. Okay, this is the URL where I'm accepting the category ID. And if I get the category ID from here, I'll first check whether the category ID exists. And if category ID exists, we'll just delete it. That's the thing for the... Now we can save this and we can test our category APIs. But we have got some errors over here. And we got an error which says that it should be, instead of role required, it should be roles required. So let's check the Flask documentation. What's exactly the implementation of roles required? Roles. Sorry. Okay, this is how we implement the roles required. So basically, we use roles required and we pass the like this. So we can use it like this. over here in the CRUD's API, where we are using the roles required, it should be basically roles required. That's it. And we need to import. We'll save the file and let's restart the server. Yes, all our APIs we didn't get any errors. So now we can test all these APIs which we have created. I have a Thunder client extension or Thunder client extension. I can create a new request now. I can just copy this. Now create a new request with this URL, and instead of categories, I just say category. Let's say that I want to send a, it's just this categories only. I send a get request to the categories. I get an empty list because right now I don't have any categories. So let's add some categories now. Same endpoint, it's just that in the body, we need to send the name as roots. The next, let's say, description. Some description we have sent. And let me check whether these are the only keys which are being accepted over here. So it's name. Okay, let me copy this, ensuring that the keys are correct. Yes, and now let's send it. You need to sign in to view this resource. So basically, first thing is what we have done. We have said auth token required. So we are not signed in. That's why we have got this kind of a response. So what we'll do now is first we need to get the authentication token. And since we are performing, let's log in. First, we'll try to log in with the user one. We get the authentication token from here. And pass inside the header, we have to do authorization. That's the key we have defined now. And we send the authentication token sent. Now it says that you don't have the permission. Initially, it was saying that you are unauthorized. Now it says that you don't have a permission because we have logged in as an user. Now if we go log out, let's pass the current. We log out from the application, then we log in with admin credentials. And when I log in, I get a new authentication token. I take the authentication token from here. And when I'm creating a new request, instead of the old one, I have pasted the new authorization token. And if I send, now the data has been added. So did you see it didn't allow for the user? It didn't allow without the authorization. And if we had an admin as a role, then only it allowed, and it was we were able to add the categories into our database. Now, with this thing, we can test for the get now. Let's say that, okay, before get, let's add one more category. Fruits, we can add veggies. Oops. We have added two categories now. Let's now send a get request. Now send a get request. Just give me a second. We'll send a get request now. And now earlier it was getting just one list. Now we can getting a list of dictionaries and all the items, all the categories which were there. We can see that. Now let's say that we want to send, we just want the get request for the category ID 2 and send a request. We're getting it just the category code. And similarly, you can perform the put. And if some errors come, you can just try to debug it. Instead of the let's me change this thing. I'm just trying to change the description and send. category name already exists because I have to make one more change over here where I'm checking this update over here. So I've made some change in the logic that the existing category ID, just a second. So all the existing categories which are there in my system or in the database, and it should not have the same primary key also. That's the reason, because we were trying to make the changes here for the. We were trying to update the categories, but since the name was still there, we got this category name already exists because it is trying to update it, and that's why it was not able to do it. I need to make some changes here. I've made the logic change, and if I save the file now and try to send it, something went wrong. I have made a spelling error in the debuter session. Save. Let's try to do it again. And we were able to change the category description. Similarly, we can delete it just by sending the delete request. And the category has been deleted successfully. If you go and retrieve all the categories now, we just have only one. So with this, you can just repeat the steps which we have followed, and you can now create all your APIs. The steps would be very similar. You have seen, right? After we have created our authentication APIs, the steps I followed were exactly the same. You can create as many APIs you want by just defining the class. If same class has multiple methods you are expecting, so you can define the functions over here like this. If you want to ask any questions now, you can. Otherwise, we'll stop the session over here. Any questions, guys?
It's too much for the day, sir.
Just watch the recording. I think what's the difference? Like, what difficulty you find, Jitendra?
Nothing, sir. It's okay.
You are not audible. You were saying something, but you are not audible.
Nothing, sir. It's okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Others, anything you want to ask something here?
So if there is any doubt, I'll just reach out to you in the G space regarding
Yeah,
the
sure.
get and post requests during the API.
So sure. So I'll stop the recording here. And the next session will happen day after tomorrow.